In our last video, we took y'all along as we explored Antigua, Guatemala and hiked and camped on the volcano Acatenango, but we didn't tell y'all everything about how the experience went and about the difficulties and challenges that we faced. So we wanted to tell y'all a little bit more about that in this video, and we'll let y'all know whether we recommend that excursion in the first place.
Yeah, we made it up here, spent the night in close quarters, to say the least.
Okay, welcome to the debrief after our hike up the volcano, Volcano, Acatenango. We literally just got off of the bus that dropped us and the million other people that were with us.
It was a packed bus.
On the tour. So if you see dirt on my face, if you see dirt on his face, my hands.
We are dirty. Guilty.
That's what happens when you climb a volcano. To be quite honest, weren't really filming a lot while we were actually doing the hike. So there's not a lot of like us stopping and talking during the hike, which you probably have already noticed by now. Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, so to add to that, there's also a lot of people with us. So we're in a big group and we're basically being herded along to move at a certain pace, which doesn't help for filming. So, we want to stop, set up, pick the proper shots. But we have the tour guide saying, vamos, 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 hurry up, come along. Exactly. So we're being, pushed to move at a certain pace to keep up with their timeline, which I didn't care for. And we were in a large group, basically this giant caravan, at one point of easily over 50 plus people. It was like 20.
It was like 40 people without the guides.
Well, sure, but there was other groups that added on to us that were also going downhill when we were leaving. So there were other groups that were leaving as we were leaving. And so at a certain point...
Leaving the volcano, to be specific. Coming up the volcano and leaving the volcano. He's just saying that there are other groups who are also doing the hike that are led by other guide companies, basically.
Exactly. So it all kind of amassed to be a lot of people at a certain point in time. And so our group was forced to, keep moving to get to achieve a certain pace and reach base camp at a certain time. It was 6 hours to base camp. Now, my mistake was not actually getting the actual, perfect timing, like actual start to finish. But, on paper, it's, 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, we started around 11 or 11:30, right? We left around then, and then we got to base camp around 5 p.m.
Yeah. So it was closer to 6 hours-ish, but we don't have that exact info. Definitely more than 4.
Yeah, no, I think there were some people who could have done 4 hours of a 4 to 6 hours. I think I've seen it quoted online. Uphill is my arch nemesis. And it was all uphill. At first it was kind of like it wasn't even any switchbacks. Then some serious switchbacks started, and it took me quite a minute going up that hill, and I wasn't even carrying a pack. I'm not conditioned for uphills right now. That is something that I'm working on through this very moment, and this was a good opportunity, but it was like one of those things where it's like you need to be conditioned before doing it, but you can still do the hike. The only issue is we were with a large group. Like he said, it was like 40 people, 6 guys or something like that, and so the cost is low when the volume of people in a group is higher, clearly, and I knew some of that, but I was still willing to try to see what's up. We just basically walked close to where we were and booked a group trip because I was going to book beforehand, but I was like, I like to find a balance between the two, and we were still choosing what day we wanted to do it. So we just walked to a place and chose it and just went with it, basically. So there were things about it that beforehand I was like, does the guy speak English? And the receptionist was like, yeah. Guy did not speak English, maybe some words, but like did not speak English.
None of the guides spoke English.
None of the guys spoke English. Words here and there, but none of them really spoke it, which would have been fine if we would have been told that beforehand. And I wouldn't have chosen it if we would have been told that beforehand, because there were plenty of people who were tourists from other Spanish-speaking places, so that makes sense for them. But for us, we're probably being told pretty important information, although we could get the gist, and I can understand, and I know a little bit of Spanish, but I don't speak it fluently, and I don't quite speak it conversationally either. That's also something I'm working on. So Yeah, that didn't help. I like hiking my own hike. I like hiking at my own pace, and having to go with a group of such large size did not help with that. And I knew that going in, but that doesn't mean I wasn't still frustrated because like I figured that at the price point there would be quite a few people in the group, and y'all, I mean, I know that I seem like the type of person who would really like group hikes, but I really don't like group hikes. Like there are some asterisks there. There are some specificities of that. If I'm taking a group of friends, if I know everybody, it I don't even need to go down the list right now. I mean, maybe I'll save that for another time if you're actually interested in knowing that. But yes, I don't really care for group hikes. And when there is a group hike, I'm cool with it. Like I feel like 10 people plus some guides, a couple of guides, is a max for me. That's what feels comfortable to me. I don't, you know, above that it's like sensory overload, and I'm already going through sensory overload because we're hiking up a volcano in a foreign country, and the altitude's getting higher, and my breath is getting shorter. So I still enjoyed it though. Like it was beautiful. I would just do it a different way next time. And I'll save that for after anything else that Darrell has to add to the points.
Yeah, I'll also say I was not impressed with the living quarters, or I wasn't
Um,
happy about it, let alone impressed. Basically, you're in a lean-to that has a metal frame, and basically it's wrapped in plastic or some vinyl material. Inside, there is a large mattress that's like foam or plastic or
it's like a double wide, one of those, it reminds me of the school mats you used to take naps on when we were kids.
yeah, think of like American high school wrestling mat or gymnast mat would be a close equivalent. And then we had these really paper thin, cheap sleeping bags, which was generous. Um,
Generous, by generous, you mean, is generous of you saying that, or was it generous of them providing those?
it's generous to call them sleeping bags. I mean, they were cheap sleeping bags. They didn't even have uh, the hood basically that goes over your head, and they were just really thin. And so yeah, we were in this lean-to situation with four other people, which ended up being okay. You know, everybody was fine. There was no
Yeah,
issues,
yeah.
but it was just not the most comfortable situation. One toilet for everybody, the whole 40 people, a lot of us.
And Darrell didn't go in, but it really stank.
I
And it
did.
was a mess around it. There was like a rolled up pad. Somebody, I mean, this is not their fault. I mean, but somebody put sometime between when I used it the first time, and when I used it the second time, somebody rolled up a pad and just placed it in the corner because there was no waste bin in there, and they didn't pack out their waste. Whoever did that, what I'm saying is it was just pretty unkempt around the base camp area and around the toilet area specifically.
Yeah, I would say the living or the quarters and bathroom conditions were subpar overall. Um, you know, it was only one night, so it was fine. You know, in and out. We did get some beautiful images of the Fuego volcano at night. You can see the like embers from the volcano every so often. But yeah, so I enjoyed that, and overall it was beautiful. I enjoyed the views and the scenery.
Yeah, I did too. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm complaining, and I'm also not like complaining about the experience per se and how they set it up. Well, now I do think the guide company could have done stuff better, like how we were asked for food beforehand, checking in beforehand about times. I didn't feel that well cared for that I would expect out of group experiences, but at the same time it's not even necessarily like I was expecting that because I know that this experience was at the low end of price points for what it could be. Like so I'm saying what with the experience that I had, that was partially what I expected, but I'm not saying that it didn't align with, kind of what I expected for the price point. Yes, the views were beautiful. When we got to base camp, there was still light, so we got to see the volcano. You can see, I think it's like the lava flow that's coming down from the top.
Yes.
Is what you can steadily see. Now, we were over it when we got to base camp, okay? We didn't even eat dinner. We weren't that impressed with the food also. That's something I would add that we got, which is like also to be expected at the price point that we had. But, excuse me. I'm doing a lot of this throat clearing because I think being at that altitude gave me some phlegm, and I was having some throat things go on. But anyway, yeah, wasn't that impressed with the food. It really wasn't that great. But like I said, to be expected at the price point. We didn't eat dinner, so we kind of didn't congregate with everyone. There was a group of people who, once we got to the base camp, they went off on their own excursion to walk over to La Fuego. That's the volcano that is active. And apparently, I thought it was active, just like it just started becoming more active again, basically, like right before we got here. They walked over to that and came back. It was a evening/night hike, so they had to use their headlamps to get there and back. We didn't want to do that. We already knew beforehand that we didn't want to do that, so we didn't pay extra for it, and we didn't do it. And after they got back, dinner was probably served somewhere around 7 or so, and it was pasta with some sort of sauce on it. I don't know what the sauce was because we didn't go down to see. There was a good chance that it could have had meat in it that we couldn't have eaten. That I couldn't have eaten anyway. And then Darrell doesn't eat all meat, so good chance of that. Anyway, and we weren't hungry. Just wanted to kind of stay in the shelter, and we apparently missed the eruption of the volcano because we had heard beforehand that it's like during the night they'll call you to come out and come back in, come out and come back in, so that you can when it erupts, so that you can see it. Apparently, sometime around 10 p.m. last night it erupted. That's what one of the other people who was in our group told me afterward. Apparently, it was beautiful. We didn't get to see it. We were pretty passed out then. I know that that was around the time people started coming back in. Now, on this note, one thing that I would say about the trip that we took, that I feel like it wasn't super organized all the time. Like I would have liked things to be a little bit tighter. That's how I typically like things to operate, how I like to operate things because I'm a planner. Yeah, I would have preferred things to be a little bit tighter. And one of those things was there wasn't enough space for us in the habitaciones, in the shelters that we were sleeping in. So like there were 6 cots and there were probably like 6 tents. And it was 6, 6, 36. It was more people than that, maybe a little bit more than that. And then there was also the numbers didn't work out. So a group of 5. So Darrell and I obviously want to sleep in the same. We're not even just one. We're going to sleep in the same shelter, like whatever happens. That they ended up putting us in with a shelter that was above the main area where the guides were sleeping, and we slept in our habitacion with the guides. I ended up being okay with that because I was away from the main level, but I also kind of wasn't, because that means we were alienated from everything that was going on down there. And had I known that, then I at least would have been able to open the door and look at the volcano erupting last night, even though we didn't want to go to dinner. So yeah, but all the guys were nice. Like the guys were nice. They helped us as we struggled up and down the mountain or the volcano. They were kind. They made sure everybody was like taken care of as we were hiking. So I don't really have any issues there. And do you want to? We didn't talk about the actual experience of hiking, like the difficulty of it. So
yeah, I would rate this moderate to challenging, depending on your health and activity level. Like I said previously, they say 4 to 6 hours, and it's definitely 4 to 6 hours. If you're, a stud, if you can do it in 4 hours. If you're average, you work out a little bit, you do some jogging, you're closer to that 5 and 6 range. And it is basically all uphill, some switchbacks thrown in. There are people coming down from other tours. There are people on horseback. There are stray dogs, or not, I don't like the term stray dogs, but there are dogs.
They just live on the mountain.
Yeah, there are wild dogs that just live up there and basically eat the food from all the strangers that come, or all the tourists that come to hike the mountain. So it's pretty active up there, I would say. There's also, you can do a 4-wheel drive tour up the mountain, so you'll hear those vehicles in the distance as well. So it's clearly frequent. This mountain is heavily trafficked, and that's very obvious. There are 5 basically rest stops before you get to base camp. with basically each stop being about an hour from each other if you're going up the mountain. And basically you get there is an area where they're selling drinks, typical stuff, water, Gatorade, Coca-Cola, products like that, and some local drinks as well. So snacks and drinks are abundantly available should you choose to buy them. And yeah, it's, like I said, it's moderate to strenuous depending on your health level. And then going down, I slipped 3 times going down, as did many other people. It was a common occurrence. And I chose not to get trekking poles, which I would do in the future next time. And had I known, I would have probably gotten them this time.
Yeah.
But I went without and made it through, obviously. But
not recommended.
Yeah, it's not recommended.
Definitely get trekking poles on this hike. I mean, I feel like before in videos too, we've advocated for trekking poles, and I really do mean that. Like, I really like them for just having, even if the hike isn't hard.
Yeah.
If there's not a lot of uphill and downhill, I think they're still nice to have.
Yeah, they're nice to have, and I think they were 75 quetzales for the trekking poles to rent. Highly recommend using those, whether you're experienced or inexperienced. They help.
Yeah, I would add about the uphills and downhills. Like I said before, uphills are not my forte. Downhills aren't that fun either. I mean, flatland is generally just easier, obviously. But to talk a little bit about the terrain, which we didn't mention before, it's a volcano. So it's like a lot of volcanic ash. It's like a lot of sandy, gravelly soil that is really easy to slip on. And when it's not sandy and gravelly and a little bit more dense, so your foot sticks down into it, then it's hard packed, which means that if your shoes don't have good traction, then you can slip really well. Now, I made the mistake of not bringing my hiking boots on, and it was a mistake. It was I can't say intentional mistake. It was intentional that I didn't bring them because I had this back and forth, like, we like to pack light. We pack really light this trip. And I had this back and forth about whether I should bring them. I was like, I'll just bring some sneakers. Huge mistake. I should have made that other pair of shoes my hiking boots. Because as you know, before we have talked about how we like to be prepared, I wasn't like I'd normally like to be this time. And to be fair, I feel like we could have rented hiking boots at some point here. So even if you don't bring your hiking boots, there's like some shop around town because this area is heavily trafficked by tourists. Like they're doing a lot of hiking up at the volcanoes and going on excursions and things like that. So you can get some hiking boots. You can rent them when you're here, I'm sure. I think I saw a place. But I didn't. And that really slowed me down going up, slowed me down coming down, made me fall multiple times. And I might have even fell even if, even if I had been wearing the proper shoes, but there would have been far less occurrence of that. Like for me, I was slipping all the time. When I was on the way up, it was like I would take a step and then it would be like 3 steps backward because I had literally no traction on the second half, the back half of my shoe, and the rest of the traction in the front wasn't like made for hiking. They're like city sneakers. So struggled with that. I might have been down to hike to the summit this morning. I would have been down to hike to the summit this morning had I had those shoes. That really discouraged me, I have to say. I knew I was going to go super slow, and the guy was like, the guy's not going to wait for you, okay? And it's muy difícil. It's very difficult. The hike is up to the summit, he said, and like, no esperando. Like, he's not going to wait for you. So I was like, you know what? I started to do it, but I was like, this is not, I don't think I'm going to have I don't know if it's going to be worth it for me with all of the things, all of the annoyances that had already piled on top of one another. So technically we only went to base camp. We didn't go to the summit, but I'm still very happy with my experience. Even if it wasn't like normal type of fun, like where I'm smiling every second, I should say. And I'm just like very happy and having a great time the whole time. But I'm still very happy that I did it. And I would recommend other people doing it. How you do it depends on who you are and what you want out of the excursion. And I think that leads us well into our next point about how we would do it differently if you did it.
So alternatively, a different way to do it is basically doing the glamping version. So essentially a private tour guide that basically just takes us, with not a group of 30 plus people, and then basically improved living quarters. So not in the lean-to with crappy sleeping bags, on a basically like a air mattress situation, and more time for us to go at our own pace. So doing the higher end version would give you those things. You can go at your own pace. You have nicer living quarters, and you're not with a group of people. So that's a different way to do it. So, depending on your budget, your interests, you can do it that way. Now, if you don't care about those things, and maybe you and 6 other friends, all come together, you may not care about the living situation, because you just say, oh, okay. You'll just say, oh, okay, me and my buddies, my 5 other buddies, we'll just all stay in this one lean-to, and it's not an issue. We were staying with strangers, who, they were cool.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But you're sleeping next to 4 other people that you don't know.
And you have to climb over them to get out. See, so to be clear about the lean-to, it's not kind of how I think lean-to typically think of, it's open face on one side for a lean-to. So it was shaped like a lean-to because there was like a trapezoidal element to it, but it was still fully covered with vinyl and like metal. So it's like the frame was built out of metal, and there's like vinyl covering it. You've probably seen situations like this before, but very bare bones, very minimalist. And then the doors at the front, and then the beds are placed perpendicular to the door. So you would have to go over people. If you're in the back of it, you would have to go over people you don't know to get out of it, which is why I tried to make sure I had everything handled before we like settled in for the night.
Yeah. So if you want to do a higher end version, do the glamping version. Get a private guide that just takes you and whoever you're with in a nicer quarters, and he allows you to go at your own pace. That's what I would recommend if you want to do it in a nicer way. Still enjoyed our time. We were on a volcano. I mean, how many times are you going to go sleep on a volcano during your life? Maybe many, depending on where you're from.
Yeah,
in the world.
It can be many.
But for us, not many.
Yeah.
At least not at this point in our lives.
It probably won't be many, to be fair.
Overall, I do recommend just keep those notes in mind of whether you want to do it with a group of people or solo, with a private guide or with a guide and a bunch of other people. So just realize you have options.
So this is what I will say about that. Yeah, glamping, I guess. Yeah, I've seen some packages that were like glamping. You have a nicer shelter, but it's still a vinyl, and it looked like it's still like a yurtish kind of vinyl and metal situation anyway. So don't expect to be in a cabin up there. It's still on the volcano and at a high elevation. So it's not quite that experience seemingly, but a lot nicer than what we had last night. And also I think one big thing about having a private guide is that it just would have been a smaller group. And I wonder if the people who do the private tours are able to go up at a different point, because it was clear that they took us up late morning and then we came down early morning. The rest of the folks, like I said earlier, they went to the summit they left around 4 a.m, which I was up for, and it was fine because I actually slept decently well. Darrell said that he didn't sleep that well, but I actually didn't sleep that badly. I've had worse nights of sleep camping, in my own neck of the woods. I wonder if the timing could have been different, because it would have been nice. I would have liked to hike up earlier in the day. It did get warm when the sun was out. It got warm pretty quickly. It was chilly overnight, maybe 30, 40 degrees, something like that. But it did warm up as soon as the sun came out. But I think the nice thing about having a private guide would be, I would be curious about if the timing could be different. But I figure the guides do that because there are these huge groups going up and down the mountain, so they have to time it well. And my other point about that, and the thing that I think maybe one of the biggest lessons for me through this experience, is just that I told you I wasn't here for group trips. I can't do the young buck, I'm in a group of friends, I'm with a group of friends, we're staying at a hostel, just got off the plane, got my 50-liter, 60-liter, 70-liter backpacks on. I like to talk a lot. That was the kind of group that we were in. A lot of the people were very clearly European, living this backpacker hostel lifestyle, very chatty. There was a type in our group that I don't particularly care for, but to each their own. I've been in like a group with a person like this before, so it's not that unusual to me. I think just the sensory overload of just having too many different personalities in one group in general, when I already don't really care for large group trips, is just like intensified. It's exacerbated when there are specific characters, specific personalities that are on that group trip with you. And it's just a little too young buck for me. Like at my big age, I like to move a little bit differently because I do like simplicity sometimes, I don't like to go overboard with everything. I just know that I'm over, I'm over being on large group trips with backpacker hostel types. I'm going on my gap year, year-long excursion or year after college excursion. I'm hopping from place to place to place very quickly. This person in our group was like, the way that people were talking in the group was very like, it was very privileged. Like, well, come on, when are we leaving? What are we waiting on? And saying stuff in Spanish when you don't really know Spanish and being a little bit rude about it. I don't care to be in the presence of people like that. I really do like to choose who I'm around and what kind of places I'm in and what kind of people I'm around. I like to be intentional about that. And I think being in these large groups, you're probably gonna get somebody that you just don't care for. And I'm no longer open to that experience. So I'm gonna change that, meaning I'm not gonna do this way anymore.
People are people. If you're in a smaller group, you're probably more likely to enjoy your experience. Well, at least for me personally.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Me too.
Recommend it.
Would recommend. I hope that you enjoy all of the views that we show you. They sure are beautiful. Like, come to Guatemala. The people are fantastic. All that we've met, I'm pretty sure that's what I've heard from other people, saying they're very hospitable, they're kind. Mm-hmm. That's the experience that I've had. And my favorite thing about going anywhere, regardless of whatever excursion you have and what guided trip you're doing, is just like, how are the people? How do you feel when you're there? And I felt good when I was on the volcano, and I felt good in Antigua, so I'm happy. You happy?
I'm happy. I'm satisfied. Antigua, I recommend. Nice people, good food, which we're about to go eat. And yeah.
and shower.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Till next time, be safe, stay curious, and choose adventure.